You know, my people, how interesting it is for us to realize in the many people who have passed through our history, those who were truly the voice of God, those who made us extract what is most sacred, most precious in us, the people who took us out of our stupidity, our futility, our laziness. And reading my biography, I remember the day when I was still a teenager. Aunt Lo, who was a very important character in my story, who you will also know, she washed clothes in her house. I always had a habit. I always liked talking to older people, even though I was friends with them. All of Aunt Lo's children who were my age. There were many opportunities when I would escape my group to be with her, talking, telling stories, and listening. And I remember as if it were today her saying, "You need to get out of here. I need to go to Amiga. To me, I am no longer doing you any good. You are at risk of losing your life, the risk of not even finishing your studies. Is your family a good family? But everyone lives under the same rule of being victims of the same problem." She was referring to the need to drop out of school to work, because that's how it was at home. And sometimes I had already dropped out of school to be able to work. I was about to drop out again, and that old dream I had of getting divorced. Because since I was little, I was born wanting to get divorced. I kept saying I want to get divorced. She brought this to my attention. Go to seminary. Boy, you're going there. If it doesn't work out, at least you'll get an education. If you can't continue to be a father, at least you'll become a good, educated man, and you'll be totally grateful for what seminary did for you. I was kicked out of my home by Aunt Lo, and then I think about the many people who also a similar role in mine, who kicked me out of my comfort zone. And look, it wasn't even comfortable living there. The thing is, we get used to bad things. We adapt to discomfort. And the worst discomfort is the one that stops going away, tells us to comfort ourselves. What does it mean that we've adapted to it? It's like living in sin. Sin stops bothering us because we have adapted to sin. In the same way, how can a person adapt to a harmful relationship? A kidnapper where there is no love, where there is no respect. I will continue talking, and you will naturally identify where you fit into this picture, because you are just like me. We are different. We may even have different lives. But the context we go through, the paths we follow are all very similar. It may be that both of you, at some point in your lives, were expelled from your comfort zone by the voice of a person who saw you differently from everyone else. Someone who was not blinded by sameness. Someone who looked at what you could do and not at what you could barely do. Why is it that sometimes I can do so little now, but the other person sees how much I can still do? Is it different if I look at myself and see how little I can do? I will never see how much I can still do. That is what Jesus did with people. Jesus saw how much people could still live and, therefore, did not despise the little they could at that moment in our lives. It's as if they were the voice of God in our lives. People who help us see how much we still can't do. People who don't consider how little we are capable of doing. And as we rise from this context of so many impossibilities, this makes us explore horizons that we could not have explored alone. And then we begin to identify the people who are fundamental in construction of our being, people who intervened when we needed an intervention. I'm talking about you. You are certainly thinking about yours too, the sameness of thinking, because there are people who see themselves the same way their entire lives. They don't believe in the new, that God can still awaken in them, and that's when we begin to die, and when we don't open ourselves to the new. I keep thinking, what would have become of me if I accepted that challenge of being expelled from the place where I lived? Uncomfortably. What would have become of me if I hadn't listened? Or if I hadn't had that woman who was so decisive in changing my days, changing my choices? How did God act through that woman in my story? It's funny that I always knew this, but now that I've read the book, it's become even more alive inside me, and I'm opening up, an awareness that I have to be the same thing in other people's lives. It's so good. When do we live to do this, man? But I don't have the same calling as you. But you're human. You meet a lot of people every day. You can also awaken this desire to be better in those who pass by you, even inside our home with our employees. Awaken the desire to live better in those who pass by our lives. Maybe it's happening to you that I end those who pass by you, even inside our home with our employees. It awakens a desire to live better in those who pass through our lives. Maybe it has passed through our lives. Maybe a fraction of an hour in a conversation we had on the subway, on the bus. Because when we are imbued with the evangelical spirit, we naturally become attentive. People need to hear what we have to say, and we are not making this up. We learn from Jesus. And don't you need to feel like dust, a hypocrite for not being able to live what you preach? God does not need your coherence in that moment when you speak to others. You may never see them again, but your word is engraved on them. And maybe that word that you say so often to others, one day you'll have the courage to say to yourself too, that you will have the courage to believe in it and have the courage to provoke your own expulsion. Enough. I can no longer live the way I live. I need to seek my best. Part of me cannot be content with this little that I have already found. I cannot conform to this misery to which I have become accustomed. You know, this existential misery, in fact, which expresses itself in feelings and thoughts, and later in attitudes in life. The other day I was preaching, and I said exactly this. It was even on the pilgrimage. It was the first sermon we gave. By the way, I want to thank my 124 wonderful pilgrims who went with me, who provided me with a beautiful journey, which, despite being tiring, made me extremely happy during the time we spent together. On the first day of preaching, I was talking about exactly this, the devil. He accesses us through thoughts or feelings. These are the two doors through which he usually enters, making me feel or making me think. That is why I need to be very careful with what I think, with what I feel. Why? Besides, there is a very interesting rule. Two thoughts cannot occupy the same space. So, if I realize that I am having the devilish thought, that is what divides me, what hurts me, what makes me plan evil. Luciana, I have to banish this thought because, if not, the devil will grow and then he runs a risk of acting through me. The feeling that occurs to me. I cannot control feelings, but I can allow them. They occur to me and I can naturally feed them or purge them if the feeling hurts me. If the feeling is not. Naturally constructive is the ball. But, Father, how will I know that we are not stupid? We know very well when a feeling is the ball. And if I have thoughts and feelings at the disposal of the devil, I will not be able to be this instrument of transformation in the life of anyone. Whoever passes by me, I myself will be deprived. How will I be able to awaken anyone else in the one who is under my emotional authority at that moment, in the one who cries in front of me, or in the one who lives badly before my eyes? How will I be able to help? How will I break the internal prisons if I do not believe in the power to break? These predictions, how will I make the other reach their best version, their best part, if I am not living the same struggle? I repeat, God may even use my incoherence if my right word reaches that person, and even if I am unable to live it, God may do so and cause the effect of what I said, but it makes no sense. It is not fair. I offer to others and am deprived of what I am offering. I am happy to be able to identify that I have had many, many people who represented this voice of God in my life, voices that encouraged me, made me believe in everything I believe today. I always like to say that God is natural to me. It has never been supernatural to believe in God, even if we pedagogically use that language. Yes, but I believe in God in a very natural way. A God who visits me, who knocks on my door, who talks to me, who loves me, who prepares an omelet for me, who surrounds me with affection, who surrounds me with attention, who also gives me orders to expel me. Who can tell me, right? It is not exactly like the song says. Who pulls me? Who tells me what I need to hear? Is that how it is? God is natural in my life because he decided to be natural and act in a language that I understand. Of course, supernatural men do this action, which is what I cannot understand, what I cannot control. And I have seen many supernatural manifestations. I have seen many miracles that my reason does not understand have already happened in my life. But what makes me believe in this possibility of making the gospel an instrument in my transformation and in the lives of those who pass by? Me? It is precisely this natural fact. It is the opportunity that I have to look at my past and realize when God interfered in my life. When did he open my seas? When did he break the oath? The walls of Jericho in my Jericho? When did the Lord make the rain fall? When did he make the water gush? Many people in my life have represented all these miracles that I plan for the people I know who have no ulterior motives or third intentions, who are pure by my side. They are sinners like me, but in their intentions they want my well-being. Do they want to take me to my promised land? People with discomforts that we only identify after we get out of them sometime later. You look at this and say, my God, how did I manage to live like this? Habits that bring us health, but are easy to change because it is uncomfortable to change. Human beings tend to settle even for things that are bad. How many times in my life, including events that led me to write the book that stole me from myself? The book that stole me from myself is a sequence of stories of people who got used to it, if you will, and who suddenly realized that they were dying not in but emotional death. They were losing their joy, they were losing their satisfaction, and suddenly the book itself works like a voice that comes and unsettles them. I always like to read texts that unsettle me, that provoke me, my ability to think, to reflect. In fact, that's what religion is, isn't it? That's what religion is. It's a human instance, because religious symbols are, all humans, even though they refer to God, are texts of human realities that help us think about our lives and this thinking about our lives. It has to be the exercise of error. I can't live well if I don't reflect the life I live. It's that old story I told at the beginning of the program. I get used to the little that I've already found myself, and religion comes. It gives me new concepts, new understandings that make me think about the much that God, even though God already sees a little of what I already am. I'll repeat that it seems difficult, but it's not religion. It can help me with the little that I can be to believe a lot that God sees, and the little that I already am. So I have a process to be lived in the same way. As for becoming a doctor, I have stages. First, I need to learn to read and write. A doctor once needed a great doctor. Today, one day, he needed someone to teach him how to read and write. In fact, in that immense emotion, which was a great gift, the Caldero Du Huck program paid me a beautiful tribute. Very respectful, right? First, because Luciano and my friend became friends in a very special way at a Mass, we became special. Angelica is very Catholic. The family suffered a terrible accident, right? And everyone came out alive, and that changed everything in that house. Changed everything. That family, I became friend with him at that moment. And because of the affection he has for me, he provided me with it. A program that rebuilt what I consider to be the turning point in my life. It was my school, the opportunity one had to learn to read and write. And then, inside that school, I discovered a library, which opened my mind. Now it was good to go to school, wasn't it? I still feel that butterflies in my stomach from that first time. I still dread school. When I see a two-colored pencil, it gives me the creeps. I was so terrified of that pencil. You know, the one that was blue on one side and red on the other. I'm terrified of that pencil. That's all I remember. School is killing me. But I had to live through it, and I know it was the most uncomfortable experience. It was the first time I was kicked out of my house. It was the first time I was exonerated from having to live in a world that wasn't mine. But on the other hand, that started that first expulsion, and then many others. They were fundamental to the changes that God made in my life. You know, my people in this world that preaches so much sameness in this world that is used to patting us on the head to take away our authority, as fathers and mothers, they make us think that friendship suffers. It makes sense if we're supposed to have fun together. It's getting harder and harder to be uninstalled. And this problem that Aline mentions here, that there was no one who was uninstalled at the right time. Could it be that so many immature people are generating immature children? So many immature friendships that only talk about trivialities? Our encounters, our entertainment, the music we listen to, always banal, so little evoking what is most noble, what makes us think, or the book we read, or the book we didn't read properly. Everything is very superficial. Everything is especially superficial. Get ready for us. It's getting difficult. Are we being expelled? We are becoming complacent, and that's why we break this rule, because it is not possible to mature. It is not possible to grow under this rule. Maturity will only be possible for those who are willing to live the expulsion. Allow yourself to be expelled from what you consider today as complacency, Or at least allow yourself to question whether the place you are today is your place, Father. But it is so uncomfortable to start over. I will not change it. Let it go. This life is so I will not touch it. Do not worry. No. This life is too precious. It is unique for you to waste it. So truly, let all sacrifices be. They will be welcome if they are to become what we can be. The little that you are now to become the much that God already sees. Thank you very much for your affection. I apologize for my absence. It was for several reasons. Death. My sister, I was so tired, but I traveled here and there a lot. I went on a pilgrimage and I was away from the program for a while. Spiritual direction, and you were lying down watching the reruns? I continued in the same way, with many words of affection and support. Others were rude, thinking that I was abandoning you. No, this is my place. I make a point of always being here. If I am not here, is it because I have exhausted all possibilities and there is nothing left for others? May God pour out upon us the blessing and protection of heaven, of Almighty God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Until next week, God willing, wait and see.